and it was the hardest thing I have ever done.
You play in the first game for free.
I've been going to South Africa to play footy. Has it ever been done since?
What was it like coaching Sandlands?
The boys around Kelthorpe just gave it to me.
John Blakey. Did you have an incident with him at all?
It was just time, and I knew it was time. And
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. BackChat powered by Fleet Network, powering the podcast this year. Very lucky to be joined by this man today, Matthew Spider, Burton cult figure, AFL status. Hello, mate. How are you?
hey, Will.
Spider, it's so good to have you here. You walked in, and I was just very intimidated from the outset. Very scared.
His attitude? Or
No, it's just his. He's a tall man, and I'm tiny.
Mate, thanks for
Dan.
joining us. Very, very happy to have you in here. Now, I don't know if you've listened to many BackChat episodes before. I'll just assume you have, but just in case you haven't, we ask the same question to every guest we have on the show, Spide.
Right.
It's the first question we ask every time around. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement, but we know you can play footy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know you've done all that. We know your greatest sporting achievement not on the football field.
Yeah.
So Dan here, well-established leg spinner as a under-12s.
Under-12s, grand final, 5 for 16. Didn't win the grand final, but put up some good figs, try to carry
mate,
the team.
That's more important.
Yeah, that's right.
I was a 80-metre hurdle state champion,
Okay.
under 9.
Yeah.
So could run, jump over a few pieces of wood on the ground and then finish at the end.
Yeah.
What have you got outside of your football prowess? Played across 3 clubs at AFL level, bit of waffle footy too. What can you do other than footy? Your greatest sporting achievement?
Does a hole-in-one count?
Yes, absolutely,
yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
Where?
I don't know if we've got long enough, honestly.
Talk, mate.
It's
I
a
want
long
to hear it
lead,
all.
so.
Don't worry. What happened? Where was it?
Well, I play at Cottesloe Golf Club in Swanbourne, Saturday morning, just with 3 mates, a couple of blokes that I regularly play with. We tee off on 10, 11's a par 3. I should have hit 7 iron, I hit 8 iron really hard and dragged it right down left and into the crab. I thought, all right. So then played 13. It's a par 3. I'm thinking, I'm not going to make the same mistake. It's 5 iron, but I'm going to hit a 4 iron nice and soft, and just clipped it. And Doc Newman, he called it about halfway through the air. He goes, that's going in. And it was a slam dunk, just straight in the
Really?
hole.
No.
Oh, that's huge.
What did you do?
Oh, I was high as anything. The only blue was then we get around to the 9th and there's water on 9th. I've kept playing the same ball and I've hit in the water.
Oh, you've lost your hole-in-one ball.
Stupid.
So is that you meant to sort of keep the ball and get
I
back to the
will. I should
bar?
have done. Yeah.
You didn't,
Well, hang it up at home or something like that, you know.
you didn't want to go for a swim?
Well, I was going to say,
Yeah,
Spider's
yeah,
been
yeah.
training for the Roto, so maybe just heads down to the Cottesloe Golf
Yeah,
Club.
into the lake.
Now, we don't usually do this, but I think it's relevant. Ron Chopper, doing
Yeah.
great things in golf.
Yep.
He's actually put a question across. We ask our we ask our fans to put in questions. We'll get to that a little bit later on, but
Okay.
I think I should ask this now.
Yeah.
He said, ask him if he's hit a fairway with his driver yet. I'm sick of trying to teach him.
Oh, mate, I tell you, I got the worst coach in the world. Ron's alter ego.
Yes, correct.
So he's a great coach, and he does it well, and he does it with a sense of humour, as in, i.e. Ron Chopper. So
Very good.
Yeah.
Like that. Did we have a Holden recently?
Yes. Chad Warner?
Chad Warner.
Chad Warner.
Right.
Of the Sydney Swans. Really keen to have a chat about your footy journey and career, mate. I think it's pretty unique along the way. And I said that before the mics came on, and you said, really? I think it is. You played across three clubs. I won't say sort of, but West Coast, Fremantle, North Melbourne. What was life growing up like for Spider Burton? No, what was life? How was your upbringing? You're West Australian. Were you sporty family? How did it go?
Yeah. Dad played 180 games for Subi. So him and Mum got divorced really early, got 2 full brothers. I was the eldest. They're 2 and 4 years younger. And we lived in a great area. We lived in Inaugural, in a quiet area. The next door neighbour, there was 2 boys. Across the road, Phil Smart, the recruiting manager at Fremantle when we started. Up the laneway where the park was, the Nilmses, the Knights, the Davies family, and they were mostly boys. It was 90% boys. And we just played footy and cricket the whole time. And if we weren't playing footy and cricket, we were playing tennis and golf or stuff like that. So it was awesome. And then in light of that, it was really probably because of that upbringing that I was lucky enough to have some success at footy, like kicking left foot, kicking right foot, handballing, all of that sort of stuff. We just did it from 0 years of age,
Really?
with older kids, with younger kids, but it was just we'd just have breakfast and we'd leave, we'd go home for lunch, and then we'd be back doing whatever it was we were doing. So,
were you tall as a kid?
I was let's say the tallest in the class to 12, 13, and then from 13 to 17 just took off.
Really?
And went from sort of not maybe winning the best and fairest, but second or third at your junior club to getting a game for half a game in the forward pocket because I was first to training and last to leave because I just loved it, but I just couldn't get a kick. I couldn't get near it. Well, actually, the coach, Mel Green, Danny Green's dad, and Brendan Green, who's my age, Mel, he said, you actually know where it is and you get there, but the arms and the legs didn't know what they were doing. So I just had to grow into them.
So you weren't always playing ruck?
Oh, not at that age, Dan. Nah, mate, nah. Honestly, it was forward pocket for a half because I loved it. Yeah.
So you held for a long time the tallest player to ever play the game at 210 centimetres. And I don't know if some of these players are just standing on maybe higher shoes they've got getting measured at 211 because there's not many blokes getting taller than you. So as you said, you're growing up, you're a bit all arms and legs. As a kid, is there sort of, do you 16, 17 and you go, oh, actually, I know what I'm doing now. I'm starting to feel like, is it as a junior you start sort of growing into the bit or not really?
Nah,
Yeah,
it didn't.
right.
It didn't help. And my wife would argue I'm still like this. I was really immature. And seriously, I was. So, at 18, 19, 20, I was probably not realising sort of what was going on.
Right.
But, I got invited to Subiaco under the father-son rule in the under-19s, the Colts, because I was tall, not because I was good. The first year would have probably played half the games, but, more seen as a project player. The following year, a few more, then too old for it, so you go up to reserves. And it started to click about that year.
Yep.
I was sort of 20 and then got drafted at the end of that year, and I was probably just happy to get drafted, more than realise the opportunity that, was presented to me.
Yeah. So you got drafted to West Coast, 1990.
Yep.
Coming to the footy club, it's just been established, 86, 87 is the first few years. You come into the footy club an incredibly successful period of the footy club. So 91 and they play in a grand final, lose. 92 they play and win. 94 they play and win. What's it like as a young kid who, as you just self-describe, immature, what's it like coming into a successful era like that?
Yeah. I was just happy to be there.
Yeah.
And I remember Glenn Jakovich, who is probably 2 or 3 years younger, he just trained like a lunatic. Now, he's an all-time great,
Yes.
So whereas I didn't have that mentality. I trained, I didn't miss a session and I did extras and all that sort of stuff, but I didn't have the maturity and the want to do it like, let's say, like Jacko did.
Yeah.
And, I was gradually improving, but not quickly, and trying to put weight on, but, not really. So it probably wasn't until the opportunity got taken away from me and I went back to Subiaco in 94 that I then realised, oh, hang on a minute, I'm starting to run out of chances here. So
I can imagine sort of being at the club at that time during the success that as a young kid it would be easy to think, well, this is just how AFL footy works. This is what happens when you're on an AFL list. Yeah, okay, I'm not taking my opportunities, but teams playing grand finals and they win and lose them. Was that?
The success was just expected.
Yeah.
On that 1990, 91, I reckon they won the first 13 or 14 games straight that year. 92, they obviously win it. You're in the change rooms afterwards. You're all a part of it. It was awesome, and they're your mates. I was living with Dean Kemp in that year, so
yeah.
So that was awesome. But I look back upon that opportunity and going, wow, if you just had probably mentally gone a bit harder, it would have been things may have been different. So
I heard you talk about how in like those early days, everyone just trained exactly the same.
Yeah.
So like you're training exactly how Jacko trains. Just if you were to like, obviously nowadays it's sort of so specialized. Do you think that sort of played into it as well to not getting an opportunity early?
Maybe. There was a line of thinking that maybe I just don't do any training and I just do 3 months of weights. And maybe that would have been the right decision, But Brian Cousins, Ben's dad, was my coach at Subi, or the reserves coach at Subi, and he said, you should be playing footy twice a week. So you got these different sort of views of, I just needed to play to get some experience up, but I needed to put on probably 10 or 15 kilos as well. And there was also a perception that I needed to put it on because I didn't really put it on when I got to Fremantle, but it turned out I was good enough to be able to play.
What were you weighing? So you were 210 centimetres. So what were you weighing?
When I joined West Coast, I was 87. So
which is skinny for that height.
It is, yeah. So my playing weight, once I matured, was a 105.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Mick Malthouse as a coach?
Yeah.
You had some great coaches during your career.
I did. Listen, Mick actually, he wasn't a fan. I think I was always trying to be funny and again, probably immature, and he could see that, and a project player, and he didn't want a project player. He wanted success. No, having it, So we got on a plane when he was coaching Collingwood, and I was playing for North, and we'd been up in Canberra playing Blockbuster. And he got on the plane. He says, "Listen, I didn't think you'd make it, so well done." I thought, no, good on you. He didn't need to say that.
Is that a backhand?
Well, yeah. But I sort of picked up his vibe.
It was his way of almost apologising.
Yeah. I sold a dummy at training one night. Yelled at me, pulled me aside. Who do you think you are, Thorough Merit? And,
Thorough Merit.
I fucking sold it too. And just put on the left and hit the player. So I wasn't allowed to do that. So, but I just wasn't good enough at that age group. And again, it's that opportunity. I've already mentioned it gets taken away from you. It makes you hungry.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what happened then. Sort of 94 for Subi, and then Fremantle came in.
You used to be able to sell candy. I've seen a bit of footage of you selling candy out there. For someone so tall, you're agile.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. One day, we're at Waverley playing Essendon, and David Kelthorpe ended up becoming a teammate at North, and we laughed about it. But I went to kick it, and I realised he was going to smother. So I pulled it away at the very last second, and he went past and sold it. And I didn't hit Peter Mann. Peter Mann made me look good. It was the absolute floater of all time. And the boys around Kelthorpe just gave it to him like nothing else. He's the biggest, skinniest prick and God's ever put wind into, and he sold you a dummy. You must look like a dumb. It was so funny. So yeah, I got lucky a few times.
But there's footage on YouTube. You sell candy 5 times in a row.
That one. How do you reckon Pagan handled that one?
You were just standing there selling candy.
I put my hand up to apologise to him like this, and the crowd all roared, because it ended up going forward and someone was having a shot for goal, and that made him even worse because then the crowd liked it, So
he thought that you were giving it to the crowd.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Were you doing it to the crowd? You've just changed.
No, I was doing it to him because I knew he would have. And he came down at quarter time or 3/4 time and gave it to me, but we laughed about it afterwards.
That's good.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
So when you get cut from West Coast, cut from West Coast.
Yep.
The list sizes came down, so they were.
They did, but again, Malthouse didn't want me, and Nizzy was a fan because I'd been at Subi with Nizzy, and he wanted to keep me and all that sort of stuff. But and the list size came down, and I sort of wasn't a project player as much anymore, So
how did you get to Freo then? How does that come about?
So 94 back at Subi. I was living with Phil Smart at the time, actually. So he's the Claremont footy manager. He gets the job as the national recruiting manager
for Fremantle.
Jared Neesham's the coach. So there's an interview lined up. I got on the other side of the table Jared Neesham and Jared McNeil, who was the footy manager, and he's a good friend of mine now. And Wayne Loxley, the Subiaco footy manager, and me on this side of the table. It's at Subi Footy Club. And Neesham goes, I don't think you're good enough. Just don't. You just haven't got it. You're slow laterally. And Jared's Neesham's very opinionated. So I went in thinking, flat. And he goes, so tell me why you should. And I don't know what I said. And, it wasn't a lot because I was disappointed that he'd gone in with that view. Mm. And he goes, oh, listen, you're friends with Phil Smart. Come to training. We'll see what happens. I go, all right. So I get to training. There's 90 people there. So,
wow.
So they've probably at that stage recruited, the guns like Ben Allen and Scotty Waters, Peter Mann. But then there was the other guys, sort of like Tony Delaney, Todd Ridley, that didn't have that profile. But there's probably 15 or 20 AFL guys. Then there was probably another 10 or 15 sort of gun waffles. And then the rest of us were waffle players, just trying out that they could just put on the list, for extras. Because, again, they were allowed extra players. I think they're allowed, don't quote me, but I thought that was 52, but it could be maybe 45 or something like that. So I go to
it sounds
training.
like just like an open training for people to.
Well, they invited them, and so it was all the waffle sort of stars at the time, who'd all been overlooked by drafts and that sort of stuff. And it was the hardest thing I have ever done, bar nothing. It was so hard. It was 6 mornings and 5 nights. I had a job in between, so I was with Timmy Collins at Access Business Machines and with my mate Dave Snow from Subiaco and Snowy was trying out as well. So the 3 mornings were alternating running and weights, and the runs were quite difficult. We're at Bicton Water Polo, and so you'd run out sort of 6Ks and then run back, and then you'd have some breakfast and you'd have a shower, you'd go to work, and you'd come back and nighttime was training. And nighttime was at least 2 hours. Jared had a lot to teach, and he was awesome. So that was 6 mornings, 5 nights from, I think it was October the 30th or the 31st, all the way through to the end of January. And it was just so hard. I remember getting home Saturdays after training, and you just get into bed and you sleep from like 9 till 2. And then you'd be fresh enough to go out Saturday night. So, and then Sunday, behave yourself, and Monday morning back again, sort of thing. So it was really difficult. But the 5 nights, and this is where I improved. This is where I went from a good average waffle player to being able to play AFL footy. It was all because of Jared Neesham, his education and his training. And I used to stand at the back, obviously being the tallest of this group, and he'd say something, and I'd go, wow, no one's ever said that to me before. And by that stage, I played 100 waffle games. I'd been on an AFL list for 3 years. And I'm going, wow. And I put it into practice. And then he'd do a drill that did that. And then, and then another night later, and I go, wow, no one's said that either. And so I went, and because you're training like that, you're going to get fit.
Yeah.
So you're getting fitter, you're improving, you're learning like nothing else. And it was a real privilege, and it was the difference from me from making that progression. So it was awesome.
Really this is the inaugural Freo squad. This is the first year. So I don't know if I've spoken to anyone who's sort of, I'm sure Mac, was he down there?
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
So, but we probably didn't focus too much on that process. Was West Coast was established in here, and Freo is this new club that's trying to start up, and you got 100 people trying to get on this list. Like it's like a boot camp by the sounds of it. Trying to improve. It's pretty interesting concept. Like it's a brand new footy club, no team song, and assuming no facilities.
No facilities, mate. It gets worse. Worse. The South Fremantle Footy Club had arranged for a motocross on Fremantle Oval. So we had to go and find other ovals to go and train at. So we were training at Troy Park, and Troy Park sort of like reminded me of an old tip, it was lumpy, and here's an AFL club training. Now listen, we didn't know the difference, and it didn't overly worry us. South Fremantle, we had the visitors' change rooms, and we just had a hook. So Chuck Norris, he found out that I think John Curtin High School were getting rid of some of their lockers. I feel bad about the signwriter. We got a trailer. We dropped them at the signwriter's house, Scully. He spray painted them all purple, and we got some help to hang them up. So we were arranging stuff like that. So yeah, it wasn't the most sophisticated, but I wouldn't change it for anything. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Exit meetings and after I finished playing and stayed in Melbourne, finished playing AFL, I actually got involved with the AFL Players Association, sort of like through the financial, exits and that sort of stuff. But I was sitting next to a guy one night, so they just cut people. So, I was sort of wondering how it was happening, but sort of, Dan, you're not coming back tomorrow. I will. Don't you, mate? You can just go to work tomorrow, sort of thing. But I remember this time. So what happens was, let's say, how recently it was 40 degrees. If it was ever 5 nights of training, they might do a Wednesday or Thursday. It's going to be 40 degrees. We'll go down to Bicton water polo and we'll play water polo, but we'll train the same scenarios that we've been training here, but we're doing it at Bicton. Right. And I'm sitting next to this fella. I'm not going to say his name. He was an established waffle bloke. He played 100. He would have played 200 games in the end. He's putting his boots on, and Nisham comes over and goes, "Oh, you won't need them tonight." And he goes, "Why, are we going to water polo?" He goes, "No, mate, you're cut." And he just turned around and walk off. But that was the 90s. That's sort of how it happened. No exit interview, no psychologist and player welfare manager, no footy manager sort of sitting there waiting for you to come out of the exit meeting getting told you're cut. It was just this bloke's dreams got sort of squashed.
And he was done. And that was true. He was
He just had to sort of put his bag over his shoulder and go to his car. And
So if you'd see coach walking around, are you just waiting for him to walk up to you? Like I've heard stories of people getting made redundant at work, and like the PR person's coming around or the HR person. It'd just be scary if he's walking towards you. You think probably going to get cut.
Yeah. And myself and Brad were the last 2 names on the list. So you're sort of always wondering, what's, are they coming at me and all this sort of stuff.
So you make the squad though. You make the team.
Yep.
You play in the first game for Freo.
Yep.
Big.
Yeah.
That's a big moment. First game for a football club.
Yeah, it was great. So a couple of things. Me and Peter Bell were the only 2 that played every pre-season game. In the last pre-season game, so 2 weeks out, we had the week off before the season started. They have this wisdom to arrange for Fremantle and Brisbane to meet in Melbourne, and we played at Waverley Park, and it was 40 degrees.
Wow.
And you can imagine the atmosphere at Waverley, like it's a 60, 70,000 people stadium. There's no one there, like no one. And it's 40 degrees in Melbourne. And I'm playing Roger Merritt and Damien Burke, and I didn't play very well. I thought, I've stuffed my chances up here. I'd had a really good preseason. I was playing well through the preseason games. So you got to wait, Anyway, I understand Neil Danaher went into bat big time for me. So he said, he's had a great preseason. So the last game got forgotten. I got chosen in the first ever game. So it was awesome. It was awesome from a number of fronts. I'm a month off turning 25. That's old for an AFL debut. I understood the significance that it was a club's first ever game, and 100 years later you played in that first ever game. It was at the MCG. I've been through a lot, missed drafts and getting cut from AFL clubs and that sort of stuff. So personally, it was a great achievement, running onto the ground. First bounce, take the first bounce, a bit of a natural ball. Richmond sort of push it forward after a bit of scrimmage. Dale kick it, gets it, and I've taken off to the fat side of the ground, the MCC member side of the ground, run out there. Greg Deere hasn't bothered to check on where I am, and Kickety's kicked it to me. So I've taken the first ever mark for Fremantle. So
wow.
You can put that in your stiff shit file. So I get it, and I'm out there on my own, and I run about 5 or 8 metres, and I just kick it, and I kicked it to the 50-metre line. Like, you don't kick it to the 50, you kick it deep inside. I must have seen someone there. So I've kicked it right to the 50. So I get the first ever message from the runner. Don't fucking kick it there. So I've got 2 firsts. And they never get remembered. I'm, a bit disappointed. I was sort of hoping that, There's a plaque for Todd really kicking the first goal. You know, what about a plaque for the first
mark.
message from the runner?
Hey, we might be able to do something about that.
Just above the phone. Just a little plaque.
Yeah,
on the bench every week.
The spider.
Late spider.
yeah.
That's very. You play well that game. 21 touches, 7 marks. One of those, the first mark. 13 hit outs. Pretty good game for a ruckman.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got more than 21 touches in a game ever again.
Oh, that's mate. You got to do it once. I don't think I ever did in my whole career.
So,
Yeah, that's special. Really good. You played in the first derby as well. First derby. Because that first game you lost by 5 points, which is a close one. Leading into this derby, which I think was round 7.
We were
Is that
3 and
right?
3. Yeah.
And so you'd actually continued and
The following Friday, I reckon it was, we played Essendon at home, and they kicked a goal after the siren for us to lose by 7 or 8 points.
yes.
So we almost won that as well. We won round 3 against Fitzroy at Western Oval. We beat Sydney, I remember the week before at the Wacker. So we're 3 and 3. We're thinking that we were going all right. And
Sure were.
we got beaten up by the big boys the following week. Yeah, big time.
Was there a build up to that internally?
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah.
No, not Jared didn't overly go over the top, but it was big.
Locally.
Locally, it was huge.
Right.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was the opening of the grandstand at Subi Oval. They'd redeveloped they redone the grass and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was a real big deal. And it was probably a little bit disappointing that we got smashed by 80 points. And,
They were defending premiers. This is 95.
they were
They won the grand final the year before.
They had all the superstars. Yeah.
Yes. What's your overall sort of memories of playing with Freo? Because you really established yourself as an AFL player. Like you said, you hadn't played game at West Coast, but, you went 17 games in that first year, 15, 11, 22. You became vice-captain of the footy club. I mean, you got fond memories of your time at Freo.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Life's better for the opportunity, and I'm forever, I moved in across the road from Phil Smart when I was 3 years old. So, thank goodness for those sort of moments,
Yeah.
for what Jared Neesham taught me, and for the opportunity to play AFL, so which is what I always wanted to do as a kid. So it was awesome. Yeah.
How did you go traveling every second week on a plane?
Yeah, we get asked that question a lot, Dan. I really enjoyed it going there. So I love being around the boys. We played this card game called cribbage. So we had a crib board. So, you can play it in 2, 3, 4s, even 6s. So we played that. We had a lot of fun doing that. You stay at, quite nice hotels. You eat good food. You're going to play AFL footy. So all that's exciting. The blue is invariably we lost. Then you got to come back. You're tired. It might not sound like much, but the flight home's an extra hour than the flight over. So that was a bit of a downer, was that piece of it. But all in all, I quite enjoyed it, and we embraced the travel side of it. It was interesting when I got to North Melbourne and you go to Sydney for a game and you just go up in the air and then you have a cup of tea and go down. You just go, wow. So
Did they have business class for you?
not in those days, occasionally, but very, very rarely. But the emergency exit row,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't mind that. So it's not the end of the world. So
Yeah, it's very good.
yeah,
So you finish up in 99. You're vice captain in 99, and then you finish at the footy club.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
rare.
It was that extra year on my. I had another year on my contract. Damien Drummond. And again, he did apologise. It was only 12 months ago. I ran into him at the races at Derby Day, and he said, "Listen, I made a blue." I said, "Oh, mate," my life's better for moving away. So, so thank you. I was with a whole bunch of Melbourne friends that weren't even involved in footy that I'd met. So
That's a good point.
So at the time, you're pretty flat with it. Listen, Chris Bond was a captain. He got cut. I got cut. It's just circumstantial.
Was a bit of cleaning house. If they're getting rid of the 2 captains, was there more cuts to that?
Yeah, maybe. He obviously wasn't happy with the direction of where it was all going. They'd lost the last 6 games in a row. There would have been some pressure on him. So
You You thought you were staying in WA after that, though, didn't you? Didn't you think
Yeah,
West Coast
since you
gonna
got
pick
good
you up?
mail. You've actually said a couple of things already today, your researchers. Dan, you said something. Yeah, so do you want me to tell that story?
Yes,
please.
please.
Yeah.
So you think if you're at West Coast, you go to Fremantle goodbye, and you think West Coast is picking you up.
Yeah,
They got pick 39.
that's right. Yeah, you're even on with that. So do you know who was pick 39 was?
No.
Yeah, it's
Well,
Kane Munro.
Was it?
So
As if you, yeah,
So-
obviously.
He knew.
I met my wife in April 98. We got engaged later that year. So 12 months later, she was playing for the Orioles and the Perth netball team.
Nice.
So so she's probably going to retire, but she's not sure. West Coast, Nizzy again, you know, I've always had a good relationship with Nizzy. You know, he sort of says, all right, then we're going to take you with the last pick, you know, and I go, yeah, I'm great. That's so good. You know, my wife and I just bought a house in Perth together. You know, I used to have a saying, you know, I was probably a little bit ahead of myself, to be honest, but if I didn't know someone in Perth, I'd go up and introduce myself, you know, sort of, you know, knew a lot of people. So,
Kind of a big deal.
yeah. Yeah. And so life was going pretty good, except for the footy, of course. You get cut, and then Nizzy rings you up, you know. Listen, this is what we've decided. Yeah, great. So the draft was a Sunday morning on Channel 7. So my wife and I went down to Margaret River for a holiday, just the last hurrah. Came back Friday or Saturday. Friday, I get this random phone call. We're driving up Caves Road. It was a Melbourne number, 03. And so I answered it. And it goes, it's Dennis Pagan here. So I go, g'day, Dennis, how you going? He goes, yeah, good. He always called me Matthew, forever. Yep, very well, thank you, Matthew. He said, how would you feel about coming to North Melbourne? And I said, well, I said, that's not going to happen, Dennis. West Coast could take me with their last pick 39. And because you guys are traded for Lee Colbert, you don't come into the draft to pick 59. So you can't. So, you know, I think it's it's not worthy of, you know, much of a conversation. And he goes, well, how would you feel about it? And then we're driving up Caves Road, and back then, this is 1999, you know, we're not running on Telstra 5G here. So it cuts out. Anyway, he rings back. And I said, I thought you'd changed your mind. And he roared with laughter. I thought it was hilarious. Wasn't very funny. But he just thought, yeah. So anyway, yeah, I wasn't rude. I was always going to say, yeah, of course I'll come, you know, knowing full well West Coast. Yeah, of course, you know.
Yes.
So anyway, the draft, Sunday morning, I was best man for Jason Norrish. It was his engagement party Saturday night. They had the mid-strength and the full-strength kegs mixed up, so all the old fellas are sideways because they thought they were drinking mid-strength and they were drinking full-strength. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Sorry, that's very good.
Yeah. Sunday morning comes, pick 39. Oh, here we go, Dale. You know, West Coast asked for extra time. So back in those days, they asked for extra time. So, debate's going on. I'm thinking, oh, hang on, we're not in a bit of trouble here, you know.
Right.
And anyway, they went with Kane Munro, and I'm thinking, oh, all right. So the missus actually then took off into the bedroom and watched the TV in the bedroom, and I'm in the lounge room.
Was she watching the draft, or she
Yeah.
just flicked?
Oh,
closed her
no,
eyes
she was
on
watching the
stuff?
draft because, yeah, now I'm barracking for North Melbourne. So their first pick 59, Clayton Lascott from West Perth. I'm thinking, oh, no, you know. Anyway, I got to 72, and, of course, they draft me.
Right.
So, and all of a sudden, Dennis is on the phone. So, hello, Matthew, we've got you. It's great news. And Dennis would always ask a question, but you've got to answer it the right way. He's asking on purpose. And he says, so when do you get here? And I go, when do we start, Dennis? He goes, love the wee, Matthew, love the wee. I jumped on the plane and away we went. And that was interesting because, you know, you're turning into a footy club. You know, I got cut, you know, vice captain, extra year of a contract by the team that finished second last on a 6-loss burner. And I've been picked up by the premiers. So, you know, it's quite humbling. You know, I said to Dennis, he took me out for lunch the first day, and I said, why do you want to do this? Like, I sort of didn't get it. And he goes, well, they wanted Corey McKernan, one of your former guests on the show, to play full-time forward because John Longmire had just retired. Obviously, Kerry was at centre-half forward, and Corey was playing second ruck a lot. And he said, we want to have 2 ruckmen. We think that's the way to go. He said, we've never won back-to-back premierships, so we think we can go back-to-back with 2 ruckmen. So it was Capuano and myself. So
you played every game that year, 23 games.
No, that was 3 finals. So I got dropped. So I struggled early. I played rounds 1 and 2 and then got dropped for 3 and 4.
Right,
I think the second game only had 1 touch and 7 hit outs or something like that. So, but all in all, it was intimidating walking in there. You got Wayne Carey, Glenn Archer, Anthony Stevens, Johnny Blakey. It's sort of funny saying these names because, a few of them are mates nowadays, but it was sort of, very intimidating going. And I had played AFL, so, you shouldn't have been intimidated, but you still were. And I learned a really valuable life lesson through it, is that we were running out of demountables. Honestly, where we did weights and the boxing ring was underneath the grandstand. The grandstand was all cyclone fence off because it was about to be demolished. But it was the people that were there, the coaching staff, the footy managers, the doctors, the volunteers, were just absolutely unbelievable. So you look at it, and the success of anything is the people, and they're the greatest resource. And that was the lesson that I got from it when I reflected back on it after a year. But yeah, I really struggled. I went with a knee injury and rehabbed it over the pre-season, and then struggled early, but sort of then got into a rhythm. And it was interesting. By the end of the year, they loved me, and I couldn't work it out. Like, I was averaging less than 7 touches a game, and they loved me. And I got cut from a team where I was averaging 11, 12. Don't forget, these are lower, like we're having 200 kicks a game, so 200 possessions a game, so they're lower percentages than than these guys nowadays. Now. But all they wanted me to do was hit it to, Stevens, Simpson, Harvey, Shannon Grant. I'm missing 1 or 2. Ben Robbins, when Robbo got there, these sort of guys. They just wanted me to tap it to them. And that's all they wanted me to do. So they just wanted me to play a role. And again, that was another life lesson to sort of pick up from that part of the journey too.
Play a role.
Yeah.
Do you remember playing West Coast the first time in North Melbourne colours?
Yeah. Yeah, that was at the G. That was a night match. I think it must have been a Friday night match.
I'd have a bit of a chip on your shoulder with that one?
Not overly, but I'd never beaten them down at West Coast, at Fremantle when I'd left. And they had the last round of 99, but I got dropped. I wasn't playing. So I hadn't beaten them personally. And then they come out and whip us on round 1. So, yeah. But, I was probably struggling for form. Then I wasn't even playing all that well, actually, at the reserves in rounds 3 and 4, and Matthew Capuano got injured, so I had to play, and I started to sort of find my own.
You played your first final after 10 years in the system that year, and you won some, made a prelim 2000.
Yeah.
Do you find that now or at the time strange, or how do you reflect on that? Given you've been at West Coast, they're winning flags. Fremantle, an up and coming side, of course, just started, but North Melbourne off the back of a flag. It's your first final. Was it a big moment for you?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And, to win a final at the MCG, was awesome the week later. But, and in hindsight, North were just coming to that end of that era. It's just a pity that I just jumped on it late.
Yeah.
Again, I talked about expectation with West Coast. There was a massive expectation at North just to play finals, and that's just what they did. So they finished 4th that year, I reckon. We played Essendon round 1, first week of the finals, lost by 100 points. Matthew Lloyd kicks his 100th goal for the year, so all the crowd come running on. Our boxing coach was a water boy. So we're all standing in the middle, and they're all coming past giving it to us. Like, it was late in the game. They're 90 points up. He wants to punch them all out. We're all pulling him back.
Did he clip any?
No. but he wants to smash them. That's why they're boxers. They're aggressive. Jackie King, he was a ripper. And then just to fight back the following week from that, we were massive outsiders. Although we finished fourth, and to win that final was great. But Melbourne and Essendon and Melbourne beat us easily the following week. But Melbourne and Essendon were the two best teams that year to play off in it. So
were you always Spider? Like,
that was a high school nickname.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? Like, there's
just arms and legs, all arms and legs.
Because Aaron Sandiland's nickname Spider. Everett, Spider Everett.
Yeah, tall fella. Yeah.
Is this? Mm-hmm. I might not be missing anything, but also, like, is it just a tall thing? Is it?
I think so. Yeah, right. I think it's just because. Well, mine was I was just all arms and legs, and
yes.
The Premier's son, who I went to school with, Ray O'Connor Jr., was he gave it to me when I was year 11, year 12.
Yes.
So
did you have many battles with Spider Everett?
Yeah, a few.
The two spiders going at it?
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah.
How do you feel about having Spider ER as your nickname and Spider DA? He has Spider as Everett. Did you prefer your spelling?
I'm a little bit conservative. I tend to think that I stand out anyway, so I don't run the tattoos or the dreadlocks, or I don't try to do anything different, mate.
2001 was a big year for you. Two things happened. The first one, you took your first ever bounce in the AFL.
Is that right?
In your 11th year.
Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
Do you remember that?
No.
It's a long way down.
Yeah.
Would you have been given license? Would Danny Laley have been your coach at this stage?
No, it was Dennis still.
Yeah.
I remember one, I got told off for it too, at Dennis the following year, 2002, which was the game after Kerry got cut. And we went to Port Adelaide, and Port Adelaide were always finishing on top in the early 2000s. And so, we were rank outsiders for that. And I took a bounce, and I told my mate, Benny Robbins, I said, mate, shepherd, like I'm actually telling him to shepherd for me so that, I take a bounce. And Dennis, he roared, why wouldn't you just handball it to him and let him run and bounce and run away from you, So that was a sort of, I don't know. I probably think I was a tall man, a small man stuck in a tall man's body. So.
You had 4 for your career, 4 bounces.
Is that right?
So you took your first 2001. You took 3 in your second last year of AFL. What happened there? You'd
gone rogue.
Off the leash.
Yeah. That's when my confidence was at a supreme height. So.
That's very good. And 2001 also, may not be a fond memory, there was a huge comeback game. You blokes were up by 70 points and you lost.
Yeah, against Essendon. Yeah.
Dennis, bit of feedback after that game?
No. Even maybe not into the 60s, but when we were 40 and 50 points up, I thought this might be good enough. Like, Essendon were hot. They should have won 99. They got beaten in that prelim by Carlton. They won 2000. I think they lost one game for the year. They were hot. 01, they played in the grand final. And they were just full of superstars. And, we built it up. North Melbourne had no money. That pre-season, we had a camp, if you know any of the Melbourne suburbs, we had a camp in Elwood, which means that we drove half an hour to Elwood and we went home for each night. Then we went back the next day. We got Brian Gordon in as the guest speaker. That was only because Dennis had been down to the basketball and done a solid and was guest speaker for them. So, Brian, you have to come back in 2 months' time and speak at our pre-season camp. So we went to this sort of like a hotel in Lygon Street, and we had a big team meeting there, and we got off to a flyer, and it was cool. It was really cool. Things were going so well for us. Like, I kicked a goal and I got it from fall of the ball, like running inside forward 50, Steve Alessio, and I think some of our big fellas, Corey and some others, and the ball just came off and fell in my hands, and I kicked a goal. Like how many times did I kick a goal from fall of the ball inside forward 50, So we were hot at that stage, got to 69 points up, and they didn't win by 2 or 3 points. I think they won by, like 17 or 23 points or something like that. So they've actually given us a real good gun over in the second half. So
you ask how many times have you kicked a goal from just falling in your lap inside forward 50? Well, your last game, you did.
The boys were looking after me then.
I've seen the footage, mate. That's pretty special.
Yeah,
though.
it is. Yeah.
So they obviously you'd announced, or the boys knew it was your last game?
Yeah. I'd announced. Yeah, I was shot. my foot was really, really stuffed, which I've had fused since. Played 10 games that year. And I was 33 and a half. It was
Old.
time.
Yeah, it's old for an AFL player.
Yeah, it was just time, and I knew it was time. And
Daniel Motlop?
Daniel Motlop. Yeah, Junior, he's a good fella, and seriously, he looked after me. And he wouldn't handball inside forward 50, let alone handball. He handballed backwards. So.
He came flying. I don't know if anyone who hasn't seen it, great player, Daniel Motlop. Hit the pack with pace, one-handed pick-up. 10 out of 10 times he's snapping on his right foot.
That's right.
He has literally given it a up the chimney hand pass, knew you were behind. And if you don't mind, it was a good finish by you.
Thanks.
Snap around the corner.
Thanks.
Boys came from everywhere.
They did.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's a special memory to have in your last game.
It is. Yeah. No, it is. Yeah.
So we spoke about all the coaches you played under as a player: Mick Moldhouse, Neesham, Damien Drum. Who am I missing?
Dennis
Pagan. Danny Laley. Is that the last year? Second last year?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big crew of coaches.
Yeah. Yeah. And, most of them have had success. So, I learned a lot from all of those different coaches. I was ruck coach for the 2 years after I retired with Danny Laley. So, even then I learned a lot off her. It was awesome to sort of see. She was sort of like, because she came from Mick Moldhouse, and Mick did change his style of play through that period. And that's why Collingwood has so much success. So so that was good as well.
I've seen Danny's doco. You're mentioned in it a little bit. Danny's sort of first time coming back to her teammates and speaking about sort of what had gone on. Do you want to speak about that at all?
Yeah.
I know you were there.
Yep.
What was that like?
It was a spin out. A bit dirty on Simo. I didn't know the cameras were going to be there.
It was at Simo's house.
Yeah. So, it was the North Melbourne blokes.
He had the biggest house, did he?
It's huge. He needs a tank of petrol to get from the front gate to the back door. So it's, Drew Petrie, Daniel Pratt, David Hale, Peter Bell, CMO, myself. I'm missing someone. Sorry, whoever it was. We're the teammates, or we'd been coached by Danny. Danny had her partner, Donna, there, and the cameras were there, and we just had some pizzas, and she explained the journey. I learned a hell of a lot. It was good. The cameras were there for about 2 hours, but then after that they left, and we sort of stayed for about another 3 hours. So it was just a real sort of pleasure to hear the story, hear her ups and downs, her her reasoning why certain things. So it was a real pleasure. So
sounds like you were really, and this is without knowing you too well, Spider, that you were really connected to your teammates. Like you're a good teammate.
Yeah, it was interesting. Steve-O actually congratulated me. He goes, "I can't believe how quickly you fell in love with this place." And he didn't realise it was real hard at first at North. I'd never lived in another city, so you got that. You're trying to find your way. You're trying to play AFL footy, but not be too in the face of these guys. And I just wanted to play my role for them. So so I think thanks, Will, and I think with speaking modestly, I think that's been a strength. And of all the footy clubs I've been at. Yeah.
So you held the record for the longest time as being the tallest AFL player to ever play.
Yeah.
Do you know the four that now sit in front of you?
Well, I suppose it's Cox, Sandilands.
Yes.
Was it Peter Street?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's one current player. We've named Mason Cox, another current player. Plays for Hawthorn.
Oh, yeah. Starts with N, the surname. Yeah.
Well, first name, Ned Reeves.
Yeah, Ned Reeves. Yeah.
So all at 2'11".
Yeah.
1 centimetre. I mean, that's pretty stiff.
I know Aaron's definitely taller than me, because I was his ruck coach for a couple of years at Freo when we moved back to Perth. But can I just expand on that side of it?
Yeah.
I think maybe it held me back a tiny bit. Maybe the view of others, and that's why I got overlooked in drafts and that sort of stuff, was that the dinosaur was dead. It was sort of like Justin Madden and then this will be the last of the dinosaurs. The game's, moving on from these guys. So I'm sort of proud that the legacy that I got is that they could sort of, recruiters and, coaches could sort of see that there was a role for someone as tall, and now they're looking for those tall guys. They're, actively going and searching for the basketball players that say Mason Cox.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of proud of that legacy that I left, that I was able to have that impact and maybe change a few views, that it's a game from people from Boomer Harvey size all the way through to mine. So
What was it like coaching Sandilands? Did you see much of
that
yourself
was the
in him?
easiest gig of all time. I was just smoking cigars and just sitting there. Just had the best view in the house stand. Oh, mate, he's a superstar, I tell you. He could do everything that you'd want from a ruckman, and most of all the follow-up for someone of his size. I played against him once, and I was shot. My foot was shot. But the thing that I struggled with was, let's say I could play against someone like Matthew Primus, who was really, really strong, but in some ways I could almost reach over with the size of my arm and my height, and I could beat him with my height. But with Aaron, he had the strength of Matthew Primus with the same height. So I found him very difficult to play on the one time that I played on him. So, but his view on life and football, he was a big, strong man. He acted strong. He was a real leader amongst those Freo guys.
Got to get Sandy on the pod.
Yeah, I'd love to get another big spide on. Was there any difficulties being as tall? I'm thinking like boots and different size to most blokes that play.
Yeah, especially in those days in the 90s, it's a lot easier now getting clothes and shoes and that sort of stuff. But somehow managed. Yeah,
that's good.
I'm lucky. My foot is actually not ridiculously huge. So I'm size 13, which is not like, I think Aaron's size 16. So that comes into play.
So what size are you down?
10.
That's a pretty big feat.
Yeah, not bad. I think of Andrew Vlahoff, king size, big and tall. I see those billboards everywhere in the city. That's been going on for a long time. You would have. Yeah. Is that where you would have got clothes from? And stuff?
But they're mainly for the larger gentlemen around the stomach, whereas I have a bit of length issues. So.
I've got a couple of little ones to finish off with. John Blakey. His son's playing in the AFL at the moment, the Lizard for Sydney.
Yeah.
Did you have an incident with him at all?
Listen, the readers, the listeners of your podcast, I wasn't a tough man, okay? But I did manage to knock out one person in my AFL career. Just happened to be a teammate, Johnny Blakey, in his 350th game.
What happened?
He's bloody unlucky.
What happened?
I can't remember who we were playing. I think it was at the MCG, and it was a centre bounce. And Johnny actually was. I was going to mention him when I reeled off those 4, 5, 6 North Melbourne names. So if there was ever a really, really tight game, I used to get him into the centre bounce and hit it to him, and he'd win the centre bounce. He was an awesome player.
He's a key position player, though, effectively.
Half-back flank.
Right, yeah.
Excuse me. But he was just one of those players that one-on-one he could hardly be beaten. And that was the beauty of when I went to North. I couldn't believe you have this perception that it's just Carey, but there was 12 or 13 blokes that could seriously play. And Blake's is one of those. And David King, I haven't mentioned him. He was one of those. And I'm doing a disservice to another 3 or 4 that were just gun players. Like Craig Scholl, and I only had 1 year with Scholly, but he was a gun. Darren Crocker was before my time, but he was a gun. So it was a centre bounce. I had Blake's at 12 o'clock. I was going to hit it to him. He wins it, and he could either do a U-turn or he could hand pass it to one of the boys going past. And I did hit it that direction, but somehow the other ruckman has flipped me around. And so, there's a fair bit of velocity there. And trying to slow myself down, I've whacked my hand out and I've just backhanded him across the face. So, and he's out to it. So,
yeah. He's 350th.
Yeah,
he wouldn't be. He'd be able to have a laugh about that.
Nah. It was my brother's. My brother's favourite player was Blake, so he was dirty with me too. So,
last one, and then we're going to get some listener questions. You're one of only 9 to play both at West Coast and Fremantle.
I didn't play at West Coast. So.
You were on the list, though.
Yeah.
Daniel Metropolis, Trent Carroll, David Hines, Tony Godden, Brendan Fuster, Greg Harding, Scott Waters, Jared Schofield, forgot about that, and Dale Kickett. That's a pretty decent club to be a part of.
Yeah.
You boys got blazers or hats or catch-ups?
We need to have a club, don't we? Because there's some really good fellas there. Like a light beer shandy on a warm afternoon. So maybe we should have a little West Coast Freo.
I could have just chucked you into that. Now, let's finish off with this social media, not social. You heard me right, Spide. This is where we get the people to ask the question. I can see a little smirk on your face. I know you like that. So this is from the people. I heard enough from Dan and I. You heard from Ron Chopper earlier on. This is from this segment. Let's get into a few of these. Fresh Sports Collection.
How did you feel about the Dockers colours and different style of jumpers and merch that Freo had?
Can I tell you a story in regards to that?
Please, yes.
So they come down to present us. We've got this song and we've got these colours, and the bloke came down from the advertising agency and he goes, the purple is the colour of the sea, the red and the green are the lights for the ships, and the white and there's this meaning. Right. And then he goes, and purple is the colour of sexual frustration. And I thought, suits me perfectly. Then the marketing team come, we've got the best song, we're having this, it was right before the season started, like it was sort of 1 or 2 weeks out, and we're having this big function, and they go, this song we reckon will go top 10 countdown.
Heave ho.
Yeah. What? Well, the marketing team loved it, didn't they?
Oh my God.
Did it?
No.
Did you both used to practice it when you hadn't, like before you'd won?
Well, we had to for the first once or twice. But
did they give it to you on a tape or something?
Yeah, like how were you practicing?
Yeah, just the words and
It's driving home at night.
Yeah.
Top 10, that's very good.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Dubster.
Did you play in the preseason game in South Africa in 1998 where Desmond Tutu tossed the coin?
I did, yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Listen, that was a funny one. To be going to South Africa to play footy. Has it ever been done since? I wouldn't think so. But and the cricket pitch was as hard as anything in Cape Town, and I come bursting out. I didn't have a great season. So it was 98. So 97, I hadn't had a great season. I'm aggressive as anything, trying to win the first centre bounce. And on the cricket pitch, I've put the foot in on the stops, and I've just started sliding. And the knee went right above my face. So we're playing Brisbane, so whoever the Brisbane ruckman was at the time. So I lucked in, really. But yeah, old Desmond Tutu, yeah.
Throwback. Dale_Tyrell.
Do you remember being tackled by Phil Matera?
No, that hasn't happened. He's a mate of mine now, Phil. He couldn't tackle me.
What did it feel like getting tackled by the smaller guys? So I feel like you'd be like like the bigger kid that's all the little kids trying to tackle him.
Yeah, I got reported for elbowing Daniel Kerr, and I got off it once because I just said all I did was just hip and shoulder him, but I elbowed him in the head. I should have got reported, but I got away with it.
I'm as tall. That's where my elbows are.
yeah.
That depends. It's very good.
Now, one of the things I did get taught was lift the arms up, so they could only tackle you around here, and then you can get your handball off. So,
Prox_.
Is the spider an arachnophobe?
No.
Yeah, I am. Actually, Jono. What?
I'm just going to read this out in case there's some sort of reference here.
I'm reading this and I don't know. I actually can't. Maybe Spider will be like, let me tell you a story.
Ask Spider to take his shoes off and count to 10.
Does that mean that I'm stupid or something, does it?
I don't know.
Jono Bent? You know Jono Bent?
No.
Thanks for your feedback, Jono. Really good. That went well, mate. I'll give you this. Wardy_85.
What's the best and worst thing about being so tall?
Well, the best thing is at a concert. Yeah, got the best view of the house. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah. The worst thing is when you walk into a podcast and you bang your head on the on the smallest room. Dan, you're all right.
I'm fine. Even Will knocks his head every single day.
Don_Harley_.
Is it true on game day bars in North Melbourne would sell Jack Daniels and Coke with ice cream and call it a spider bourbon?
Wow.
So there was a drink called Spider Bourbons, but this was at Fremantle. We heard Fremantle supporters would do this. Whenever I had a touch, then they had to scull their Spider Bourbon.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Spider Bourbon.
What a legacy. Don't worry about the legacy of actually setting up a pathway for tall people to play football forever, which is an incredible legacy.
Yeah.
The Spider Bourbon may be
Bourbon.
just a close second.
It's sweet as anything. It's too sweet.
Last one. This is from the Eggman. Tappy 95.
How does Spider like his eggs?
Scrambled.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Very
it is.
good.
Mate, that's us done and dusted.
Okay.
BackChat. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was good. Thank you,
It was
fellas.
good. Thank you,
You were
mate.
very, very gentle on me. Thank you.
Actually,
Always.
one last question. Do you know how many games Kane Munro played?
No, he did play AFL, but yeah.
18.
Oh, there you go. Well done.
Yep. I would have rather had Spider on my team.
So would have I. BackChat _ on socials. Get over there. Subscribe to us as a podcast. Watch us on YouTube. If you're doing neither of those right now, go and do the other one. That'd be great. Big thank you to our supporters and partners. Fleet Network, Swimply, Whippersnapper Whisky, Margaret River Roasting Co, Blue Bet, Shelter Brewing Co, Leaderville Cameras, Mumba Digital, all looking after us. Find everything you need over at backchatpodcast.com.au or backchatstudios.com.au. VIP codes for patrons. If you want to become a patron, you'll hear one more story from Spider coming up now. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.